What's up, beautiful people? Kirby Hasseman here, wanting to deliver you just a little bit more marketing joy today. So today on the video, on the podcast, I'm going to tell you that positive emotions are not the only positive emotions. We're going to talk about what I mean by that and give some illustrations. What you need to understand is I'm a pretty positive guy by nature, but the idea that positive thoughts are the only thoughts that can create positive outcomes is kind of silly, really. They're not the only kind of thoughts or emotions that can drive you into positive behavior. So both positive and negative thoughts can be positive when used in the right direction. And so that's what we're going to cover today, and I hope it provides you some value. If it is, please feel free to subscribe to the channel, whether it's here on YouTube or on the podcast. Would love for you to follow along. So, like I said, I tend to be a pretty positive guy. People say that about me. Now, I work at it. Just like everybody else, I've got both positive and negative thoughts running through my brains all the time. And I thought it might be helpful in the course of this discussion to kind of define what I mean by being a positive person. First of all, it doesn't mean that I only have positive thoughts. That's crazy, right? We've all got both sets of thoughts running through our brains all the time. And often, almost all of us have more negative thoughts in our brain because most things we see in the world are negative. About 89% of what we see in both social media and in the real world are negative. And so we have tons of negative thoughts running through our brain all the time, and I certainly do too. And it doesn't mean also that I only have good days, right? We all have both good and bad days. To me, being positive, at least as I see it, is even though sometimes things are bad, they're just inarguably frustrating or sad or whatever, I believe they will get better. And maybe more importantly to me, I feel like I have the ability to make a difference. So in a situation, I can look at it and say, well, that's a bad situation, but it won't always be bad. I can see where it will be better. And I want to speed it up to get to better, and these are the actions maybe that I can take to move it in that direction. And that's sort of what I mean by being a positive person. But I think what people think, though, is or sort of the overcorrection, and this is what we do now. The overcorrection is now I have to be positive all the time. I have to have only positive thoughts. And A, I think that's naive. You're not going to be able to do that. You're not going to be able to maintain that. And B, I just don't think it always is the thing you need, right? Sometimes we need negative thoughts to light a fire. Negative thoughts aren't evil. I use Tom Brady as the example. Tom Brady is, by most people's standards, one of the most accomplished, some people the greatest quarterback in the NFL of all time because he's won so many championships. But he was drafted in the 6th round. And that guy uses that. I mean, he's almost my age at this point playing in the NFL. He has proved everything that he has needed to prove, and he still references that as motivation. That still gives him a chip on his shoulder that he's proving the doubters wrong. Now, I think many people would say, well, that's a negative thing to be running through your mind, but he's using it as positive fuel that makes him take positive actions. And I actually have had situations like that too. I think back to my sophomore year in high school. And my freshman and sophomore year, I'll raise my hand and say I was not great. I was not a great student. I didn't take it seriously. I goofed off in class. I didn't do my homework. I look back in those times and I'm kind of embarrassed by it, right? But like a lot of people, I had a moment where I had decided that, look, I wanted to play tennis in college. And for me to play tennis in college, I needed to actually be able to attend college. So I kind of flipped a switch a little bit and said, look, I'm just going to start doing better. At the end of my sophomore year, I had a 2.3 grade point average in high school. And I went to my guidance counselor and said, look, I've decided that I'm going to start getting serious about school. I want to start taking higher level courses starting next year. And to be honest, I didn't really have he didn't have any evidence that said I should be able to do well in those classes. But he took a flyer and said, okay, but if you struggle, then we'll maybe have to move. And I said, nope, not going to struggle anymore. I've made this decision. I'm going to do well. So he let me sign up for these courses for the following year. And this was still the end of my sophomore year. I went out to the person in the sort of the admin area and handed them this new schedule. And they looked at me and said, what are you doing taking all these hard courses? And I said, oh, well, I've just kind of like the pitch I just gave the guidance counselor. I said, well, I've decided that I'm going to do better now, and I'm just going to be good in school. And this person laughed. They laughed at me. They said, oh, yeah, right. Sure you are. Okay, whatever. And went about their day. As you might expect, as a 16-year-old, I was incredibly insulted. I was very frustrated. It was very negative, right? Well, I will tell you that from that moment on, I was on the honor roll every time in high school. My grades totally changed. I ended up graduating with like a 3.6, which is a pretty massive swing. I did really well. And every 6 weeks, it wasn't 9 weeks back then, it was 6 weeks. Every 6 weeks, I literally brought my report card in and set it on that person's desk. And now, again, that was a negative experience. It was negative emotions, but I used it to drive me toward the behavior that I needed to do, right? It made me take action to show that person that I was going to overcome, and I was going to do better than they thought I was going to do, and I was going to become a success or whatever, right? Those are the kind of moments that you can take that negativity and it can drive you one way or it can drive you another. And so by utilizing that negative thought, I was able to get a positive outcome. So again, positive emotions are not the only emotions that create positive outcomes. So the question really isn't whether positive or negative thoughts happen. We all have both, right? And the question really is the thought or emotion driving that I'm working with right now, is the thought or emotion driving me? Is it driving me towards success or happiness or whatever I want in my life? And if not, maybe now's a good time to change it. So that's my thought. That's my rant for the day. I hope you're enjoying these videos. Please feel free to subscribe if so, and I will keep them coming. Here's to you using positive or negative emotions to create the life of your dreams. See you next time.